Shalom and welcome to this special anniversary edition of Revealing the Truth as we celebrate the launch of our third year of a broadcasting network on this very day. In 2017, we launched the Igniting a Nation Broadcasting Network with wonderful guests and featured guests like our next guest, Joe Newby, who has been with us since he published his book, How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. You know, the political landscape of America is changing and socialism is rearing its head in a more profound way than in any other previous time in our history. Conservatism is being redefined in the Bible, if even referenced, is no longer the foundation upon which America is built. Here to talk about what's going on in America today is Joe Newby of conservativefiringline.com. Joe is a 10-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps who wrote for Examiner.com for 6 years. His articles have also appeared at Newsbusters, Spokane Faith and Values, and other sites. He currently runs the Conservative Firing Line, where he discusses issues important to conservatives. He is the co-author of Banned: How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. He's a featured guest here on Revealing the Truth and hosts this Conservative Hour here on the first Monday of every month at the 12 o'clock Central Time hour. Here to celebrate with us the launch of our third year of a broadcasting network and the third year of Revealing the Truth is our good friend Joe Newby. Joe, Happy New Year to you and to your family. We pray that it's a year of health and healing and of great report and tremendous growth for you, your ministry, and for the blog, conservativefiringline.com.
Well, Happy New Year to you as well, Eric, and I want to say it has been an absolute pleasure being here with you on the first Monday of every month. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, we've had a great time. We've covered a lot of subjects. We always run out of time, so before we run out of time, even at the top of the hour, I want to jump right in. You know,
Sure.
you published a book several years ago called Banned: How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. There is censorship going on at the highest levels. We saw our good friend Jerome Corsi, who has filed a lawsuit against the Mueller investigation, his website being taken down from the web, and finally through very vocal protest was restored. We saw him censored on Twitter. We saw him censored on Facebook. We saw the deep state, who he exposed, killing the deep state, come after him over an incidental email from 2 years ago, which all he did was forward an email to a third party, which under questioning, he was asked, had he ever engaged in any email correspondence about a Russian investigation, and his answer was no. And they pull out this 2-year-old email that all he did was get it and forwarded it to somebody else, barely read it because it had nothing to do with him, and filed charges against him for obstruction of justice and for perjury. And he's filed a $350 million lawsuit against Robert Mueller and that investigation. And since that time, his family has come under attack. He has been banned on Facebook. He has been banned on Twitter. His very vocal position. And Dr. Jerome Corsi is a PhD from Harvard University and is one of the most intelligent conservative voices in America today. And we're seeing this banned kind of censorship coming along, and now Facebook is doing the same thing again as they did during the time in which they would not cut down these jihadi sites, which we have linked to the San Bernardino shooting. We have linked Facebook as a social media platform for ISIS to recruit, and yet you did an expose, and they're back at it again, and you're covering it very intently and watching it very closely on conservativefiringline.com. What is it you found, and what is it that our audience needs to know?
Well, it's gotten worse than even Adina and I talked about 2 years ago when we first published banned. We said at that time that if things didn't change, if things kept on going the way they were within 5 years, that essentially there would be no conservative / anti-jihad voices on Facebook. And now we have Twitter, for example, who thinks that U.S. and Canadian bloggers are somehow subject to Pakistani blasphemy laws. And just so your audience understands, under Pakistani blasphemy laws, depending on what you do, you could face the death penalty. Well, I'm sorry, but I am an American citizen. I am not subject to Pakistani blasphemy law, and I think it's outrageous that a Silicon Valley, a U.S. company, no less, Twitter, would believe that U.S. and Canadian authors are subject to foreign blasphemy rules. It's gotten to where I think Twitter is trying to become Sharia compliant, and that's what greatly concerns me. Facebook, of course, has never really changed, except they're getting even worse. During the Christmas holiday, we reported on an instance where a photo of Santa Claus, of course, a fictional character, Santa Claus kneeling before the baby Jesus, a real character. Of course, it was, intended to send a message, that like the Bible says, every knee shall bow before the Lord Jesus, and that includes the mythical Santa Claus. But that's what this picture was intended to put forward, that the real meaning of Christmas is not about Santa Claus. It's about the birth of the baby Jesus. Facebook actually censored that picture and said that it constituted violent content. Now, keep in mind, while Facebook was doing this, there is a Christian ministry out there on Facebook called Warriors for Christ. They are evangelical in nature. They are orthodox in nature. They do not buy into the LGBT agenda. They are vocally opposed to the LGBT agenda. They stand for what the Bible says, not what we would like for it to say, but what it actually says. And the minister of that, or the pastor of that group, was actually handed a ban because he used the word tranny when referring to a transmission of an automobile. Now, Eric, you and I are probably old enough, and probably most of your audience is old enough to have heard the word tranny used in relationship to an automobile's transmission, right?
Absolutely.
Well, apparently the censors at Facebook were offended by this, and they handed a ban. Meanwhile, Facebook permits LGBT trolls to violate this man's registered trademark, set up fake pages to imitate his page, and put out messages that the people who volunteer for this page should kill themselves, that they're going to rot in hell because they don't kowtow to the LGBT agenda. Facebook does absolutely nothing about that, despite the fact that their own rules, their own standards of conduct specifically say that you cannot attack a person based on their religion. But Facebook allows this on a daily basis, but only to Christians. Okay? If you put up a post, say, mocking the Prophet Muhammad, I guarantee you would get banned. If you put up a post mocking any other religion, I guarantee you would get banned. Now, I don't agree with posts mocking any religion. Okay? If you're going to have a discussion about a religion, a debate back and forth, that's one thing. But, and I've even said this in our book, Banned, you have to know the line and where to cross it. If you go out there poking, the proverbial beehive with a stick, guess what? You're going to get stung. And unfortunately, some people do that. Well, it's one thing to have a back and forth discussion. That's fine. But people who go out there specifically to insult, attack, denigrate Christianity automatically seem to get a pass from Facebook. But this isn't permitted with any other religion. I'm not saying go out and do it, but I am saying that if they are going to enforce their rules, they need to enforce them equally across the board. And currently, they are not doing that at all. Here just recently, I want to get into this a little bit if I may. Here just recently, the New York Times got a hold of 1,400 pages. Get this, Eric, 1,400 pages of Facebook guidelines dealing with censorship. In other words, how to control speech around the world. 1,400 pages. And what the New York Times found is that Facebook itself does not even abide by these rules. They can't, quite frankly. There's a lot of bias in these rules. They make no sense, and nobody can follow them. And the moderators, guess how they come up with these things, Eric? They have a bunch of millennials, a bunch of kids that get together, I think like on a Tuesday or something in a conference room, and they throw these rules out. And if they agree to them, then it goes up and down the chain, and then it gets agreed to. Nobody else knows what these rules are. You don't. I don't. The 2.1 billion or however many people are using Facebook now don't know. And I ask you, Eric, how in the world does Facebook expect anybody to comply with 1,400 pages of regulations that nobody knows about, that nobody understands? I mean, my gosh, you would have to spend thousands of dollars hiring attorneys just to understand what these rules are. Well, the New York Times did a study of these. They went through them, and they found them to be full of bias. Found that most of or a good portion of the censorship that takes place doesn't even fall within Facebook's own rules, but yet you and I are supposed to automatically know them, understand them, and follow them. I mean, in Facebook's world now, Eric, pretty much everything is hate speech. A portion of the Declaration of Independence was called hate speech. A verse in the Bible was called hate speech. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a verse out of the Quran called hate speech.
No.
I've never seen anything out of the Septuagint or the Torah called hate speech. But out of the Christian Bible, oh yes, I've seen it called hate speech. Now, I did see where there was one verse that could arguably have come from the Torah, as well as the Bible. It was from the book of, I think, Deuteronomy, dealing with homosexuality. And Facebook said that constituted hate speech, and the blogger who posted it got a 30-day ban from Facebook. This kind of thing is going on and on and on and on without any stop. That's why right now, Eric, and I want to put this out there for your audience, there is a measure that is being put forward to state legislators across the country. It is called the Stop Social Media Censorship Act of 2019. There are state legislators, I believe, last I heard, in about 8 or 10 states that have committed to introducing this into their state legislators. What it does is it gives individual users like you and I the right, a private right, if you will, to sue, to take action against it, not just Facebook, but any social media outfit with more than 75 million users, permits them to take action against these companies if they engage in political or religious censorship. And what it would do if it's passed, once these things are passed in the states, it lets users file the complaint, file a lawsuit. Facebook or Twitter or whomever it is would then be faced with paying a $75,000 fine for each instance of censorship, along with possibly other, damages, fees, punitive payments, fines, whatever the court levies, whatever the court deems fit. Right now, there is no such ability in many states for users to do this. Part of that is because companies like Facebook and Twitter and Google are all protected under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. That, however, could be changed. There's another bill that Representative Louis Gohmert put in last December. And where that goes, who knows? But that bill, if it gets passed into law, would strip these companies of that protection from liability. And so I think those two things put together would go a long way towards stopping this kind of nonsense.
This reminds me of the outcry against the airlines for parking people on the tarmac for 8 and 10 hours and these flight delays where you were held there. And there was a move towards a traveler's Bill of Rights, and maybe there needs to be a social media Bill of Rights that is passed that gives you a full understanding, because you get these notifications that say that we've changed our policies, privacy policies, or and you have to click agree. You can read it if you want to, but you don't understand what it says because it's written in a language which is imperceivable by even an educated mind. You have to come from within the organization to know exactly what they're talking to. It's kind of talking with some of these people you have on a service representative, and they use internal corporate lingo that
Right.
you say to them, I don't have any clue what you're talking about. I don't know what that term means.
Right.
That's a term within your system. Explain that to me, and they can't explain it to you because they don't understand it. They're just told to read off a script.
Well, and let me give you a prime example of that, if I may. Going back to Warriors for Christ, I know for a fact that they have actually been in telephone conversations with people from Facebook who explained to them what they could do, what they couldn't do, what constituted violations of their policies, and so on and so forth. And they have obeyed what they were told. But even though they obeyed and did what they were told, they still got banned. So what good are these rules and regulations if they're not being enforced properly, or if they're not being enforced fairly? And that's the biggest problem that conservatives like myself and Christians and others have, is that it doesn't matter what Facebook says on these things. The moderators are going to do whatever they want to do. There was a study, I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly when it was done, but there was a study. It was done by ProPublica, which, by the way, is hardly a right-wing outlet. And what they found was that Facebook censors actually got it wrong at least half of the time. And one of the vice presidents of the study that was quoted in the article that I read knew that this was the case. They know this happens. And they keep giving us the same song and dance. Oh, we know, but we're bringing in more moderators. We're bringing in thousands more moderators. We're putting in more AI. We're doing this. We're doing that. And to somebody like myself, I'm thinking, no, why don't you just enforce the policies that are there and bring in people who know the difference between, say, a lilac tree and actual honest-to-goodness pornography? And, your audience may laugh, but that actually happened. There was a conservative user here a few years back. I wrote about this when I wrote for Examiner. There was a conservative woman who, because of her medical condition, she spent a lot of time on her computer at home, and she had a profile picture of a lilac tree that was outside her home. The woman is deceased now, but Facebook told her that that picture was pornographic. How in the world can a lilac tree be pornographic? I have a personal friend. I wrote about this as well. A personal friend of mine up here where I'm at, who posted a picture of a Donald Trump 2012 campaign button, and it only showed his face. But Facebook said this violated their rules on nudity. How in the world does that happen, Eric? How? Now, Facebook's, textbook answer to these things, oh, it's a mistake. They're always making these mistakes. And so I've come to the conclusion, I think I've shared this with you and your audience before, is either A, Facebook has hired the stupidest people on the face of the earth, people who can't tell the difference between a lilac tree, say, and pornography, or there's an agenda at work. There's a bias at work, and Facebook condones it, and they refuse to do anything to fix it. Either scenario, in my mind, Eric, is totally unsatisfactory. So the only thing is that can be done. I don't see 2 billion people leaving Facebook anytime soon. And the only other solution to this, outside of civil court, is legislation. Now, civil litigation, I can tell you right now, civil litigation, as much as we might want for it to happen, isn't going to happen. Legislation probably isn't going to happen either if we're realistic. That leaves only one possibility, and that's for conservatives and people of faith to reach out to other venues. And there are quite a few other venues. I wrote about one here a while back, an outfit called ProAmericaOnly.org. And at the time I wrote about them, they only had like maybe 3,000 or 4,000 people. But they have now grown to over 423,000. And Facebook, believe it or not, the guy who started that was a businessman. And he wrote a comment on Facebook on a post about an imam accused of whipping 3 young boys. And you know what his comment was? It was one word, and his comment was, HMMM ... That was his entire comment. Facebook handed him a 30-day ban for that. Now, how in the world can anybody expect to be able to do anything on Facebook if they're going to get banned no matter what they do or say? Well, his site, ProAmericaOnly.org, after I wrote this up, in the space of less than a week, he's gotten 10,000 new members to his site, and I link to his site with every one of my articles. He's a good man, and he's got a good site going there, and it's really very rare to see a Facebook alternative take off with those kinds of numbers. But I'm starting to see this more and more. There are a lot of other alternatives out there. MeWe is one. Minds is another. There's another one called Mumbleit, Codius.com, several others. I've got articles about quite a few of these, and I have come to the conclusion that, look, if you have a choice as a user, you have a choice. You can either stay on Facebook and be used and abused and treated like a slave, or you can make use of some of these alternatives. And I'm seeing slowly but surely people starting to make their way over to some of these alternatives.
It's so interesting that in this fast food, fast media society, that outlets like MSNBC, CNN, and other media outlets can exist and thrive on the advancement of this rhetoric, which is taking place on the House floor, new senators coming in and introducing just all kinds of hellacious legislation and commentary, threats of violence against other senators, threats of violence against Americans. This is exactly what George Orwell was talking about, what Ayn Rand was talking about. What you're looking at anarchy, you're looking at the rise of socialism. At the rate we're going, if we maintain a Republican presidency, there's only going to be one more Republican presidency if Trump gets reelected. If not, we're going to see a country that's going to move its way towards socialism, and it has not ever worked. It's never going to work, and it's going to be the undoing of America, and it starts with censorship. This is where the process begins. And so Twitter censorship, Facebook censorship, Google taking over YouTube censorship, and airing what they want you to air and blocking what they want blocked is advancing their agenda. Jeff Bezos buying the Washington what did he buy?
The Post.
Yeah, he bought the Washington Post to become.
Is it? Yeah, the Post.
The Post, because the Times is the conservative one that Cheryl Chumley works for. That's the one to watch. But you're seeing these social media tycoons getting involved in the additional sphere of influence, which is now in the area of censorship. We're seeing it in literature. We're seeing it in film. Look at this tribute to Satan last night on the award show for the Golden Globes. It's now becoming commonplace that pedophilia, that the Boy Scouts considering filing for bankruptcy because of their now inclusive policies and their rampant pedophilia going on. I'm waiting for the investigation to take place into the rampant organized pedophilia of Washington. Will that ever come out?
Probably not.
That's one of the things that will be censored again. So, we're seeing this, and it's sites like yours, conservativefiringline.com, sites like you've recommended, where you're going to find the truth, unbridled, conservative, biblical lens of presentation of the news that's happening. You cannot depend on mainstream media. We're talking with Joe Newby, as we do on the first Monday of every month at the 12 o'clock Central Time hour. Joe is the host of conservativefiringline.com, and he brings to us a deeper understanding, because he's an investigative journalist with a conservative biblical view of what's happening with social media, what's happening in government. You can visit conservativefiringline.com, become a subscriber to their newsletter, get the regular updates, and you're going to find out there's things going on that are shocking to you. And Joe has been a regular contributor and a close friend of ours since we launched in 2017. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Joe Newby, author of Banned: How Facebook Enables Islamic Jihad. Get a copy for yourself, because what he wrote about 2 years ago is happening today, just happens to be on additional topics as it expands in scope as to what Facebook's agenda really is. We'll be right back. Not everything that makes the headlines has biblical importance, but many events that happen around the world do, and you never hear about them. Igniting a Nation is pleased to teach Revealing Prophecy every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at the Marriott 280 in Birmingham. We will cover worldwide events and insider information that will connect the dots of what's happening around the world with biblical prophecy. If you happen to miss a class, we'll televise each week's class at 10 o'clock Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our social media outlets. Copies of the teachings will also be available to purchase on our website at www.ignitinganation.com. The Lord meets you right where you are, and so does Igniting a Nation's new live streaming outlets. You can now watch Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Prophecy Revealed simulcast live each Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Vimeo, Periscope, and through our website, www.ignitinganation.com. No matter what device you are using, our program will automatically scale so you won't have to miss a single program. And if you happen to miss an episode, you can always subscribe to the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel and access over 1,000 interviews and never miss your favorite authors, special guests, and topics that interest you the most.
There are lots of ways to see Israel, but nothing compares to seeing the land of the book and the people of the book through the eyes of two Jewish believers who can take you on a journey that will bring the entire Bible to life. When you join Rabbi Eric Walker and his #1 rated tour guide, Edo Canaan, in Israel, you'll experience incredible teachings, first-class accommodations, and actually walk where Jesus walked. You will experience the Bible transforming from black and white into living color, and you will never see the Bible in the same way again. For more information, visit us at www.ignitinganation.com/events.
The Lord contends with what contends with you, and Igniting a Nation is committed to bringing to light each and every issue that faces a believer's life. Our live stream programming and teachings take you on a journey to finding biblical truth from a wide variety of experts who share their insights into a deeper walk with the Lord. We have assembled the most comprehensive panel of experts in the fields of prophecy, caregiving, healing from trauma, shame, and abuse, and so much more. We continue to expand our teachings and programming to meet your needs. We're committed to healing the nations with biblical truth. Visit www.ignitinganation.com to develop a deeper walk with the Lord and start your journey to a transformed life. The Bible commands us to study to show ourselves approved, but most study using Bible study tools and not actually studying the Bible chapter and verse. Igniting a Nation is pleased to present Revealing the Bible, recorded and taught each week before a live audience. We take you deeper into the actual Bible and verse in both Hebrew and English and connect the dots between the Old and New Testament. You can attend our 2 classes in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, or watch the program every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our other simulcast outlets. For more information, visit www.ignitinganation.com/events. Shalom and welcome back to the special anniversary edition of Revealing the Truth, where we celebrate the very first day of our 3rd year of broadcast. We launched on January the 7th of 2017, and as they say, we survived the first 2 years, which are the hardest years in broadcast to make it, and we're now thriving with wonderful featured guests joining our roster of 17 regular featured guests here, authorities in their respective areas. You can find bios on all of our featured guests who appear here monthly at ignitinganation.com/featured-guests, and look at the profiles of some of the outstanding individuals we have who are regular contributors here. Joe is the head of conservativefiringline.com, a conservative blog, and a co-author of the book Banned: How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. He's on with us on the first Monday of every month at the 12 o'clock hour, bringing us the conservative biblical view of what's going on in America behind the scenes. So, Joe, picking up where we left off, we've got some new blood in the House of Representatives. reminiscent of the chants that I heard in the late 60s and early 70s for anarchy and overthrowing the government and free love and free education and free everything, and everybody should have everything, and the wealthy should support the poor, and they should take all the money and put it in a pot and divide it like the kibbutzim in Israel during its early years, where regardless of your job, that was created under a socialistic environment, which is now migrated to a capitalist environment. Some kibbutz still exist, but the moshav is the more modern, where it is you're paid by what your contribution is. But these new voices that have been elected are shocking to me, that the profanity, the irreverence for the Constitution, the despicable nature of their disrespect for the president, for the office of the president, for the American flag, for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is the platform they ran on and the platform they were elected to. And here you have a self-professed Catholic as the Speaker of the House who is pro-abortion and pro-LGBT rights, which is a black eye for every person who is a Bible-believing Christian.
Right. Well, and then you have folks like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democrat socialist elected from New York, from the Bronx, who has come up with this Green New Deal. And we did a post on this Green New Deal where we took a look, and the analysis of this Green New Deal essentially will destroy the U.S. economy for an entire generation of Americans at best. She came on. Now, keep in mind, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has become, shall we say, fodder for just about every kind of meme you can imagine on the internet. She has become a meme for whatever it's worth. She's the one, she was on, what was that, 60 Minutes with Anderson Cooper, and admitted that she is a radical, and then called for a 60 to 70% tax rate for what she called the tippy top. Yeah, those who make a whole lot of money, I'll put it that way.
$10 million. Anybody who made more than $10 million, the tax rate on anything over $10 million was 70%.
Right, 60 to 70 is what she said, actually. And when Anderson Cooper asked her if she considers herself a radical, she compared herself to Abraham Lincoln and admitted that, yes, she is a radical. And she is quite radical. If you take a look at this Green New Deal, it has every social justice warrior, uttering pretty much inside this plan. She's convinced that fighting non-existent global warming will somehow or another bring about racial justice. Don't ask me how, okay, but she's convinced of this. As part of this Green New Deal, we would have, what else? Universal health care, meaning socialist health care, like in Great Britain and Canada and other places. We would have a guaranteed income, okay? In essence, the analysis that I saw put out basically said that her plan would destroy the U.S. economy for an entire generation of Americans. Forget new job growth. There would be no new jobs. Forget economic prosperity. If this Green New Deal ever became reality, there would be no economic prosperity. And I'll go a step further and suggests that if her Green New Deal goes into place, there will be no economy. We would become essentially Venezuela. And that is, I believe, part of her goal is to bring about what she thinks is a socialist paradise or a socialist utopia. But it's not going to happen. And then you have clodhoppers like this fellow from Tennessee, Representative Steve Cohen. Cohen has been there for quite a while. He's made a lot of outrageous comments and said a lot of outrageous things. Um, excuse me, you might recall that Steve Cohen was the guy who suggested giving a Purple Heart to Peter Strzok for his testimony, for actually enduring questions from Republicans. Well, he came up with this brilliant idea. It's like basically to heck with the Constitution and do away with the Electoral College. So basically, what he wants to do is he wants to disenfranchise every voter in the country except for those who live in Los Angeles, New York City, and a few other left-wing enclaves, and set it up so that only voters from those cities would be picking and choosing the president. And of course, we know those are far left areas. And if we do away with the Electoral College, then of course we would see far left Democrat presidents for as long as the nation exists under this Constitution. Of course, he wants to do this as a constitutional amendment, and I hate to tell him this, but it will never pass because of the what it takes to make a constitutional amendment come to pass. It simply will never ever work. So we now have Democrats and Sheila Jackson Lee now has a bill in to explore reparations. So we have between that and a complete disregard for the Constitution, we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez with her Green New Deal designed to destroy the economy and in essence destroy the country. We have Democrats who are putting forward bills to reduce the power of the executive branch, and on and on and on and on it goes. On the first day of the 116th Congress, you had this fella out of California who put in articles of impeachment, the same articles of impeachment that failed in 2017, by the way. And if that fails, not to worry, because he says he has plenty more of these to come up with. And I can't help but wonder if maybe he's going to want to impeach Donald Trump for possibly using Russian salad dressing. That's pretty much where we are in this country now. I have come to the conclusion, and I've been rattling this around in my head for quite a while, Eric, but I am convinced now more than ever that Democrats would love nothing more than to see armed conflict in this country, perhaps on the order of maybe even a second bloody civil war at the rate that they're going, with all these ridiculous bills being put forward. And of course, the Democrats run the House, so they can do what they want. They've already told us they're going to have investigation after investigation after investigation. They've already told us they want to roll back Donald Trump's tax cuts. Of course, these things, I would like to say that I could not imagine them making their way through a GOP-controlled Senate. But we have to remember that we now have Republican senators like Mitt Romney, who, after all the help that he got from Donald Trump, has now turned his back on the president with this disgusting op-ed that he wrote, I believe, for the Washington Post. So
we lost John McCain and we got Mitt Romney to replace him.
Well, no, actually, he's been compared to Jeff Flake.
Ah, okay. So,
And in fact, I saw an article where he was actually called Jeff Flake on steroids. So, but yeah, I mean, if I guess if you take Jeff Flake and John McCain and wrap them all up together, yeah, you'd probably have Mitt Romney. And the sad thing of it is, Eric, is that when he ran for president against Barack Obama, I actually supported him. I thought he was a good guy, but he blew it in my mind. He absolutely just totally blew it. He took this is a case of a Republican snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
right.
That's exactly what he did. And I can't help but wonder if maybe he did that on purpose.
Well, he's someone that cannot be trusted, not just because of a number of factors. One being just the faith factor alone in what he puts his faith in, which is not the same Bible that you and I stand
Right.
behind. What I'm finding, though, is that there's constitutional illiteracy in those who are elected to uphold the Constitution. And the House can bring forth impeachment after impeachment after impeachment,
Right.
but getting 75% of a Republican Senate to pass it is impossible. It,
Well, yeah. Well, in theory, yes. Um, Basically, uh, even if the Democrats do succeed in impeaching the president, remember, Bill Clinton was impeached,
yes.
okay? But he was never convicted. That's because the House, this is something that a lot of people don't know. Um, Unfortunately, thanks to our left wing education system, or as I call it, our indoctrination system, good grief, we're electing people to Congress like Ocasio Cortez, this Democrat socialist, who doesn't even have high school, knowledge of high school civics. She couldn't even name the three branches of government, for crying out loud. She actually thought she was going to get inaugurated into the House and start passing laws. Hello, Eric. We have a nation of ignorant people. Okay, I don't want to say stupid, although part of me is tempted to, but we have a nation of people who are ignorant of civics, who are ignorant of our form of government, who are ignorant about how things happen in Washington, D.C. And they, in turn, all they go by is whatever they see on CNN, MSNBC, or whatever that bumper sticker over there said the other day. And they're electing people based upon that. And the very people that they're electing themselves have no clue what's in the Constitution. They have no respect for the Constitution. They don't even know what the Constitution says. They don't even know how our government is formed or how anything works. And we act surprised when they put forward stupid ideas like this Green New Deal, or when Steve Cohen, who clearly has no respect for the Constitution, goes out and puts forward a constitutional amendment to do away with the electoral college. The one thing that the framers put in, Eric, to prevent the tyranny of the majority, and that's why they did it. And he's putting forth an amendment to bring that to an end. And of course, we all know what that is in reality. We might as well rename it. I don't like the fact Hillary Clinton lost, so I'm going to do away with the Constitution. That's essentially what that amounts to. It will never pass, but the fact that it's out there means that it's going to, gain traction in places like New York, in places like California, places like Western Washington, which is just as liberal as California or New York, places like Oregon, unfortunately.
Well,
And
that's only going to advance the agenda of Bernie Sanders as a viable candidate for president in the 2020 election.
I think that's part of the goal. A Bernie Sanders, or maybe even a rehabilitated Hillary Clinton. Who knows? Who knows? But as well as I do, Eric, that however radical they were in 2016, they're going to be twice as radical come 2020. Whoever gets picked.
But that's going to become normal because we're going to have a year and a half of this debate on the floor of the House, which is going to sound just like the campaign stump of these candidates that are trying to throw their hat in the ring for the 2020 Democratic nomination. So we're going to get used to it. It's going to become the vocabulary and the vernacular of the day. It's not going to be so radical. It's going to be normalized because we're going to hear it on the three prime networks, the prime media networks. It's going to be repeated over and over again. They're loving these outspoken, radical, cursing anarchists who are coming up as the voice. They're no different than Barack Obama, who was a community organizer. No different than his agenda, which was a failed agenda.
Right.
But people's memories are short, and the hate Trump and do it just despite the fact that you hate Trump is going to drive this country into a very difficult situation. The hate speech that the left is so fond of wanting to condemn is exempt from hate speech against Jews.
Right.
That's still acceptable. It's still okay to be anti-Semitic. You just can't be against blacks, Latinos, LGBT, but Jews are safe and fair game. And that is just appalling to me that here we are in 2019 and Jewish hate speak and anti-Semitism is on the rise at a rapid rate here in this country and being advanced by those who are in elected official position who are not condemning it. And it's appalling to me as a Jew. It's appalling to me that people like Steve Cohen, who's a Jew, Bernie Sanders, just go down the list of Jews who are looking at this anti-Semitic rhetoric of an advancement of a hate speech which is not being condemned. There is no protection for hate speech against Jews. Lesbians have more rights than Jews.
Right, and it's not just Jews, and you're absolutely right. I mean, look, it's Jews, it's Christians, it's quite literally anybody whose political views happen to fall somewhere to the right of Joseph Stalin, and that's exactly what's happened here. But you're absolutely right. I mean, look at Louis Farrakhan. They lionized this guy. What was it? A recent women's march had to be canceled because of the anti-Semitism that was so blatant within that. But yet you see these leftists going on social media here not too long ago, followers of Ocasio-Cortez, who suggested that Representative Steve Scalise should be killed.
Yes.
This is what the left is made of, Eric, and this is what more Americans need to understand, that when they tell you that they are for tolerance and diversity, they're not. What they really mean is you will accept whatever we say or else. That's their idea of tolerance and quote-unquote diversity.
Well, it's time for the conservatives to stand up, wake up, stand tall, and be vocal, and to take this country back while we still can, and we still can. And we have an opportunity coming up in the 2020 election to reclaim America for conservative, biblical, Judeo-Christian values. Unfortunately, Joe, we have run out of time, as we
Ah.
always do. It just goes way too fast.
It does.
But it's always a joy and a pleasure. And we thank you, Joe, for your contribution to our success here on Revealing the Truth, our programming Revealing the Bible, and now our new program, which will start airing this Friday, Prophecy, Revealing Prophecy. And so we're adding to the lineup. We've added distribution points. We're now on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Vimeo, Periscope, Ustream, and building a much, much larger audience. All of these episodes can be found on YouTube and replayed on our website throughout the course of the day. But we thank you for your partnership, for your love, and for your friendship. We continue to pray for you and your family. We thank you for 2 great years and looking forward to many more years with you here as a featured guest and one of our conservative pundits here on Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you every month.
Thank you so much. God bless. I'll see you next month.
Sounds good, Eric. God bless.
Thank you. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.